Hey guys, Canaan here. Welcome back to Basin Motorsports. So today I'm going to kind of get you an update on the 86 hatchback, the Ford Mustang I'm restoring here, kind of getting back right, at least going that way. And I'm going to show you how I am fixing all of the surface rust here on the body. Now, if you remember, this 86 was something I picked up. I literally dragged it out of a field 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago. This had been sitting for about 3 years in a desert climate, so really it didn't have any rust underneath, but it had a lot of surface rust on the top, on the roof, doors, quarter panels, fenders, you name it. Anywhere on this exterior surface where sun could get to it, it had a lot of those, just kind of like little surface rust in that. Nothing through the metal, but you can just tell that it had been kind of like worn through from sand, sun, and snow. So I pretty much left this one door without primer on it, so you can kind of see quantitatively how much little spots of surface rust were across this car. Now I've done all the way around from the passenger side door, both fenders, both recorders, the hatch, some of the roof, but I left this door so that you could kind of get a real idea of how much surface rust was on this thing. Now at this point you might think, wow, that is a lot. It looks like a leopard or a little bit of a minefield. And really, a lot of this was just a small little pinhole on a lot of it. I think the worst case on these was maybe about an eraser, a pencil eraser size on there. So what I've done is I've used a cordless drill and a paint remover to essentially get down into the metal or get through the paint and everything else around these spots. So what the tool looks like is essentially a cordless battery drill, honestly, and then just a paint remover in there. So this will go through paint pretty easily. It doesn't damage the metal. Now when you do this, what you're basically doing is you can see all those, like quarter-sized pieces, even for the smallest little bit of surface rust. What you're doing is you're basically taking out like a dime or quarter-size piece of paint. So I guess it's rusted, not really rusted, but I guess the paint in that has gone down through the clear coat, the base color coat, and through primer or anything that came from the factory. So as you can see from that one door, it's a lot of little spots on there. And the thing I'm really doing is getting rid of that rust. Now it hasn't gone through the metal itself, so you don't really need to worry about cutting out any rust or anything else. This is just kind of surface rust, so you just need to basically get the paint off of it, get the rust taken off, clean it, and then etch it. Now you can look at the passenger side door and everything else. So anything that has primer on it had surface rust. Even little spots like that, but what you start seeing is this kind of patchwork a little bit across there. Now, these around the door frames themselves were completely rusty. All the way around, they were down into metal. There was no real paint or primer or anything left on them. So those I hand sanded all the way down and around. Those are etched primered, which chemically bonds and seals the metal, so it shouldn't rust again. And you can see the window trim also around there. I've got through the quarter there. And what you notice, you start to see, is that anywhere there was a little bit of sanding or I've gone down into metal, once you do the etch primer, what you end up with is a lot of uneven surface. You can feel these just going down in there. It's probably like 9 mils thick, maybe 10 mils thick between clear base coat and primer coat from the factory. So you get these little dips all the way around going on in it there. And you can just see on the hatch, same way. Little bit of dips, right? Especially you can see kind of the transition color change in that. Now once I get that other door done, the driver's door done, I have a little bit on the roof left to do, a little bit on the cowl to do to get a lot of the surface rust done. You can kind of see behind there on the hood, it's still got some surface rust. Some of that exposed metal has been that way, so I want to re-clean that and get it caught up. The fenders you can see are laying back there. They are done. They were probably the worst part of this whole process, trying to do that. And I've got the trim, which is rubber, covered in painter's tape. So that keeps it safe. It doesn't get any primer on it or anything else. And those will be repainted along with everything else to match. So mirrors around the door frames and that will be also in the same gray. the front bumpers, everything else. I'll do a separate video on how I'm doing that, but all that will be done. So once you get through the etch primer, that way I'll probably go through and lightly sand everything, probably with like probably 220 or so. Hand sand it all real quick, just make sure I get all the extras off of any primer. I will do some filler work, just a very slim skim coat. And the purpose of that is to essentially fill in all those little extra pieces where the etch primer is really. Anything that's still covered in paint that hadn't gone through, maybe it went through like the clear coat or something else, it's still good metal underneath. So you don't really have to worry about stripping this car completely bare. Doesn't require it. Everything else is still good and sealed up. And with the vinyl I'm going to do over top, it will keep everything protected. The purpose of stripping all the way down to metal is literally to get rid of that surface rust so that it can't continue to expand really over time. If you go vinyl over it and that, what you're going to find when you take that back off is that surface rust will have continued to spread. So I'm trying to prevent that so that it doesn't continue to eat through the metal, expand out. Last thing I want to do is to have to replace metal later just because I was too lazy to actually get rid of the rust in the first place. So it's very easy to do. The filler will fill in that. You'll have to hand sand the car, and I was going to have to do it anyway to get it slick enough for the vinyl. So I'll get filler work, just a thin little skim coat across this whole body. And you see that done when you see these major restorations on these car shows and that, you see them skim coat the whole body. This really doesn't require that massive amount of body filler in that. Really all I'm just trying to do is to take out these, I guess you'll all call them the divots, the leopard spots or whatever. Once they're etch primered, just to fill them in so you don't really notice they're there. So I'll do that. I'll sand this whole car for like 220, 400, 800. I think I did 1,000, 12, and then 1,500 was the last before I went to vinyl. Once I get all that done, I will redo the trim. I will paint all the trim work on this, or the door frames and that around the window. And then from that, we'll be laying vinyl. So lots of work ahead to come, but just want to kind of give you guys an update. Now, if you remember, this car was basically one we yanked out of a field. We put it on a trailer, rebuilt the transmission, resealed the engine. All the fluids in it now have been changed. I do need to get the AC recharged, get it done, just make sure it's fresh, but new coolant, new oils, new transmission oil, rear end is in good shape. All the brakes are completely done. They are great. And this thing turns over with the start of the key, which is awesome. And I feel confident I'm going to be able to drive this without any issues. So the Gray Lady is in process. Everything is in good shape. Just taking a lot of time, really. I can only work on it a couple hours a day when I can get to it, and it just takes time to get all this little thing done. It seems like every time I've gone over a panel and I'm about ready to shoot some primer, I find a couple more spots. I got to go back over it, re-clean it, and but it's going to get there. It's going to be awesome when it's done. So with that, we'll let you go, and here's your update on the 86 hatchback. All the way to the rust, and I'll continue on showing you guys. But the bodywork is essentially the same from every panel. Get rid of the rust, primer, filler, sanding, and then we'll get to painting and vinyl. So with that, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.